Gears 5, we're doing tips and tricks for the multiplayer. We're playing with bots in this one because it's a little easier to go over everything that I want to cover. So in Gears 4, I was 11th Prestige. I've played Gears since it came out. And, I know quite a lot about the game. So if you're fresh to Gears of War, the key part of the multiplayer really is the Nasher. So that's the weapon to the left here. This is the weapon you really should be casually moving around the map with. It's your main defense, it's great for close quarters combat, and it kind of mulches people up, as you can see with the instant blast there. Bots are hilarious in this because they all like stand together in like one little pile, which is so weird. Anyways, moving past that, the Nasher is your top weapon. You want to get an active reload because it's supposed to give you, well, you get a quicker reload, but it's also supposed to give you a little bit of a damage boost. That depends on map-to-map situations, though. You can also zoom in, so you're noticing how there's little tiny bucks that come out of the gun. That's a really good learning tool because it's going to actually let you know how much damage and where you're placing the damage on any enemy that you're shooting at. So a lot of the gameplay is based on doing hip shots. So it's really good to practice that hip fire. You got to note that your gun kind of shoots to the side there, you know. It's got like a weird sort of little spread to it, and that's the little bucks that are going to be going into your enemies. You want to get in as much as possible in as close range as possible, because that is going to do the most damage and usually give people with an insta-kill if you're right beside them. A huge feature and something that's really helpful. So if you want to be successful in the Gears of War multiplayer at all, you're going to have to sit there and actually learn how to use the Nasher. I should have just done this with regular players. They're less annoying than the bots. Yeah, so Nasher, definitely a key thing to learn. Definitely important. So when you're playing on the map, you can easily bring up what you're doing just by holding the back button. So window and window might be different if you're on PC or something like that. And that way you can actually see where guns are spawning, where your teammates are, the rotation for guns, so you know how long it's going to take for that gun to come back into play. It's a lot easier now, which is nice. So you just straight up see 90 seconds, 120 seconds, and the map is laid out. You can tap once if you want to see your score and how you're doing. And there's also this great thing called the TACCON. So you hold LB, or if it's different on PC, whatever. And that will give you a quick layout of where your teammates are, enemies if they're being shot at and highlighted by your teammates. So hopefully we can get that aspect showing here. So we got, come on guys, highlight some people. Bots don't really do it as much. Okay, there we go. So now you can see he's highlighted, he's showing up as red. So if you want to highlight an enemy, you look and then you tap in the left stick, and that is a spotting system. It allows you to know, and your teammates know where certain guys are, and it kind of tracks them for a few seconds as they leave the location. So we now have a B button option for stabbing. You no longer just need to melee with like the traditional options. You can just pull up a knife, which is nice, and you can still use your Nash and everything with RB holding that down, which is cool. So if somebody's down, you can pick them up as a meat shield, which is a great way to kind of take damage. So if your circle's red, grab a meat shield quickly, then you can swap out by just clicking left on the D-pad, switching to your Nasher, and being able to use that as an effective kind of switch around to actually shoot somebody that's attacking your meat shield. Your meat shield can take a chainsaw, so it's actually really great because then that puts them in a locked animation. Yes, in the game there are these things called locked animations. So you jump over something, that's a locked animation. If you go for a roll, that puts you into a locked animation, and they're very vulnerable positions to be in. I suggest doing something called bouncing. So bouncing is where you press A to go into cover, but instead of going into it, you pull back, and that is a bounce. And that allows you to quickly move and actually get yourself in a better position for shooting. So there's someone around the corner there, you can jump in, you can pull back, and you can shoot at the same time. If I had a bullet, you'd be able to see that. And that actually kind of takes you out of the line of fire because your opponent's going to be looking at where you're going instead of where you are, and it's a nice little pivot. You can also kind of do a little move side to side, seems to help a lot in this one. At least Gears 4 was really a big thing there, was doing that, and then there's like the zigzag sort of thing, but I don't really suggest doing that too much. It's kind of lame and weird to shoot with. The Lancer is actually a very effective weapon in this version of the game, so you can use this. I just wouldn't suggest generally walking around with it. Pulling it out when you are at the medium to longer distances, because it can pack quite a punch. I aim for center body because there's more of a target to hit, but certain spots will bring down your enemies a little bit quicker. So it's all about finding your fine points, and you can actually get clear headshots with things such as the Lancer in this one, which is really nice. I'm probably going to die here because I don't have a Gnasher and I'm out of lives. But as you can see, yeah, Lancer is actually kind of effective. You should do that behind cover or to the side of a wall. There are multiple options for how you shoot over things, so you can use ledges like this and you can fire over, or you can peek around cover, which is really nice, and you can also move around it very fast. We do have flashbangs, which are like a momentary sort of stun, so if you're getting shot at by somebody with like a powerful weapon, or they have a good position, or you need to give yourself a little bit of cover because you're being suppressed, using that will definitely be a huge advantage. Make sure you do revive your teammates because, you know, as a squad that stays alive is way better. Seeing the giving in action there, sometimes you need to shoot twice, but hip firing, only shoot or aim in and shoot with the Gnasher when somebody is at a little bit of a distance. Otherwise, just use your hip because that is the most effective for that weapon. You also have a snub, but I would only suggest the snub as a finisher unless you're a really good sort of crack shot with it and you can hit straight up headshots because then you can burst somebody's head off with it. Like, it's a powerful weapon, but you do have stronger weapons in your arsenal aside from that. Generally, there's a respect rule that you don't steal people's kills when they are downed on the ground enemies. Some games have execution rules, which means that you actually have to execute an enemy or be close range to them in order for you to finish them off. Other ones you shoot at from a distance and you can just kill them. So that's more like Warzone rules. Generally, you don't steal kills, but if you're playing more competitive, that's fine. I notice a lot of people steal kills, so it's really more of like a respect thing, and you'll probably get aggravated by trying to play that way, but, you know, that's just kind of how it goes. This is really cool, so if you didn't know about vaulting, you kind of go over it in the tutorial, but you can jump over it and kick somebody in the face. If somebody does a jump over against you, you can press B to counter that as well. But yeah, it's a very effective method for taking people out. Again, the knife is very strong. Even if you use it just as like a finisher, it can really make a difference. I've noticed that as being in a meat shield is a little bit harder in this one for finishing off enemies on the ground, so you may want to snap off the head of the current meat shield you have and then switch over to the next meat shield to be more effective. In the map and in matches, there are these heavier weapons like this one. So a really neat trick is you can actually move faster by doing wall bouncing, because it actually sort of attaches you to the wall faster than you'd be able to walk to it. Like, you can run, but you can just slide over and see how much quicker you actually move through the area. Generally, these things, you should be placing them instead of hip firing, but you can hip fire them too if you want. The Vulture is even a little bit more friendlier for hip firing now, which is really nice for that type of weapon. Basically, the keychain guns. So yeah, work as a team, spot out enemies. It's going to help out you and your teammates a lot by doing so. Don't be afraid to push yourself, even if the red ring is kind of closing in, because this is the game where it's like every little second counts when it comes to combat and the grueling action. You can place grenades, which is really good for protecting certain like choke points and everything like that. I suggest doing so, but being careful because they can get tangled in weird spots and make themselves too visible. If you see a grenade that's an enemy grenade that's planted somewhere, just shoot at it from a safe distance and it will explode. And yeah, generally keep things safe. Don't shoot it when your teammates are nearby, as you'll kill your teammates, so, you know, keep that in mind. You can tag people that with the grenade if you want to basically explode them and make sure that the kill is definite, but you should roll away while doing so. You can do that with stuns too for a different effect, which is neat. So there's a lot of different weapons in multiplayer, but again, if you're just new to it, you should definitely sit there and learn the essential weapons, the Nasher, then learn the Lancer. Try some combinations where you're throwing flashes in when you are being suppressed by enemies, because it's going to make a difference where you get that second to get in there, perhaps with the Nasher, or just get a better grip with the Lancer in order to shoot them down. Just so you know, the map layouts do adjust in certain game modes between rounds, so you might have different things on the map between the two of them. Some of them change, some of the more standard side items don't really change, and a lot of the game is about learning those layouts, learning where weapons spawn, and kind of dealing with that, and being smart about your combat, getting those actives. You can crawl away when you're down. Most of the time you will die, but if you are down trying to crawl away, try to crawl into a wall or, you know, behind cover of some sort, so that you're less likely to get shot while your teammate is working to bring you back to life. Yeah. So using the map is really good. Again, I definitely suggest looking into that whenever you can. If you play Gears 4, the multiplayer is largely going to be about the same, you know, not modes and stuff, but just the fluidity and how you play it in between matches. Remember, there are a bunch of different game types. When it comes to objectives in Gears, everything is basically ring-based, so kind of get the idea, the gist of sitting here capturing a ring. You can break a ring by running into it. It has to do with player count too in regards to whether a ring will break if you have like a full team in there. And the mode 2 matters a lot as well. And then you capture the ring with the full color has been changed. That's the capture point. You get lots of points for doing so. Capture rings, play the objectives, guys. It's cool. The sniper's a little bit different in this one. It's got like a fine point sort of shot to it that I actually kind of really like. I think it's a nice change up. It's called the long shot, you know, just to be exact, and you can do a zoom in as well. It's effective no matter how you're using it, whether you're zooming in or not. It's a very strong weapon. It's also good for kind of breaking down enemies, so you can shoot them in the chest if you don't think you're going to land that headshot, and that way it sort of damages them enough that they can easily be down from a distance by you or by your teammates, so that's a very good supporting item. I'm trying to cover as much as possible, but there are a number of weapons in the game. Remember to use the artillery on the sniper GL because that's going to make a big difference. Just generally be effective. Learn the movement system in the game. You want to get places as fast as possible, so run, jump, and get yourself into cover whenever you're facing enemies. And just generally, you know, learn the wall bouncing, learn the Nasher, and you'll be a more effective force within the game. And you got to really learn how to place those shots. You know, when you are bouncing out, you got to know where it's going to shoot, how it's going to shoot, how you're going to change your position in order to battle guys. And because a lot of other people are going to be using the bouncing, they're going to be using the same tactics that, you know, I've kind of mentioned, because that's a big staple of what the Gears of War franchise is. I mean, it has evolved and changed a little bit, but that's just generally how things are played, and it's probably not going to change in the future either, so it's good to get a grasp on things. I wouldn't ever give up my Nasher when I'm in a multiplayer match. If you are getting a more powerful weapon, I would suggest dropping the Lancer, because it's an easy choice to do so. That is, of course, entirely up to you. Use the meat shields at the right moment. Execute only when you need to. Don't go for executions all the time, because it's a huge time killer. If you are having troubles where someone's bouncing around you, using the chainsaw is very effective, because they won't bounce out of it. They'll likely get right into it. Sometimes you go into chainsaw battles, you'll have to tap B really fast in order to beat them. Those are kind of hardcore multiplayer, but an asset of play. But yeah, generally, key is the Nasher. Learn the map layouts too, the flow of them, how to defend points. You can really cover spots effectively as a team just by kind of positioning yourselves. Don't bunch up, because you're going to be a huge vulnerable target for grenades or sort of collateral type weapons. So keep yourself spread out a little bit, but do stay close enough together that you can't get those revives off. Use cover, because it's in the game to actually protect you. Don't run around like a maniac unless you're very confident in doing so. Aim in usually with the assault rifle, like the Lancer, to be the most effective with it, whereas the Nasher, you should hit fire. And it's about learning the weapons, learning the maps, getting used to the layout, understanding the flow in the game modes, and generally having a good time, because Gears of War it's a hardcore game to get into multiplayer wise, but it's very fulfilling once you're able to, because it's just really intense, really epic, and a lot of fun in my opinion. I really do enjoy the series, and I've been playing it for years, putting in thousands of hours, and it's nice to see it continue to evolve. And I hope I covered, you know, a good amount of like tips and tricks, you know, for getting in here, understanding the game, being more effective at it, and just generally a good sort of starting point for working forward and playing effectively in the multiplayer and being an asset to your team instead of something that is, you know, hurting your team or basically bringing them down. If you have any questions about anything in the multiplayer, let me know, and I'll try my best to help, because I haven't played this for a long time. I might be forgetting some things, but I think I pretty much covered everything that's essential and important to being effective in Gears 5 multiplayer.